All right, let's dive into a question that has really shaped the world we live in today. How exactly did China become known as the world's factory? And maybe more importantly, what's keeping it there? You've been there, right? You pick up your phone, a kid's toy, maybe some new clothes, and you flip it over and see that label. It feels like absolutely everything comes from the same place. Now, you're probably thinking, well, it's just cheap labor, right? That's kind of the go-to answer. But honestly, that's just one small piece of a much bigger, much more fascinating puzzle. The real story is about this powerful combination of things that all came together at the right time to create a manufacturing giant. So here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll look at the foundation of it all, the people power. Then, we'll see how that workforce plugs into this incredible business ecosystem. After that, we'll get into the policy trifecta that basically poured gasoline on the fire. And finally, we'll look to the future and ask the big question: for how long? Okay, first things first. Let's talk about the absolute foundation of all of this: the people. The sheer scale of China's workforce is it's mind-boggling, and it's the bedrock for everything else that happened. I mean, just try to get your head around this number: 1.41 billion people. It's basic economics. When your supply of something is that massive, in this case workers, the price, which is the wage, naturally stays competitive. This created what felt like a bottomless pool of labor, ready to power a whole industrial revolution. But it wasn't just about the total number of people. It was about where those people went. Starting a few decades ago, China witnessed one of the largest human migrations in all of history. We're talking millions upon millions of people moving from rural farms to these brand new industrial cities, creating this super concentrated, highly motivated workforce right where the factories needed them most. So what does that actually mean in dollars and cents today? Well, this gives us a pretty good snapshot. You can see that wages are set by the region, not for the whole country. So in a massive hub like Shanghai, the monthly minimum wage is around $370. And yeah, that number is going up, but it's still incredibly competitive on a global scale, especially when you remember the sheer number of people we're talking about. Okay, so you've got this massive workforce, but a workforce needs somewhere to work, and factories need way more than just people to operate. This brings us to the second crucial ingredient: the business ecosystem. This is where the story gets a lot bigger than just labor costs. So what in the world is a business ecosystem? The best way to picture it is like a dense, tangled web. It's not just the big factory doing the final assembly. It's the little company making the tiny screws, the other factory molding the plastic parts, the logistics company shipping everything around, and the skilled technician who can fix a specialized machine at like 3 a.m. They're all connected, and this is the important part: they're often just a few miles away from each other. And you want to see a perfect example of this? Look no further than the city of Shenzhen. It basically became the electronics capital of the world by building this exact kind of ecosystem. If you're a company there, you can find your component suppliers, your assembly lines, your skilled workers, your distributors, the whole shebang, all within a tiny radius. That kind of concentration creates unbelievable speed and efficiency. And this quote right here, it just nails it. Think about a company like Apple. Sure, its iPhones are assembled in China, but so are all the little bits and pieces inside. The company that makes the screen, the supplier for the chip, the battery manufacturer, they are all right there. It would be a total economic nightmare to ship all those individual parts across the ocean just to put them together somewhere else. All right, so we've got the people, and we've got the ecosystem. But what was the spark that lit the whole thing on fire? Well, that's our third key piece: a specific set of government policies that created the perfect environment for manufacturing to just explode. Let's call it the policy trifecta. First, let's talk regulations. For a very long time, factories in China operated with, let's say, less strict rules for things like environmental standards and worker safety compared to what you'd find in the West. Now, that has been changing, but for decades, it meant lower operating costs. Factories just didn't have to spend as much on things like waste treatment or safety equipment. Next up, taxes. And this is pretty smart. China put in place something called an export tax rebate. What it means, in simple terms, is that if a product is made in China and then sold to another country, it doesn't get hit with a domestic value-added tax. This is a big deal because it avoids double taxation and makes Chinese goods that much cheaper and more competitive out on the world's market. Now, of course, this whole trade situation isn't always smooth sailing. In the last few years, tariffs have become a huge deal.
And as you can see from this timeline, it's been a back and forth thing across different US administrations, imposing tariffs, reviewing them, hiking them even more. It's a constant economic tug of war. And the third piece of this policy puzzle is currency. For many years, China faced accusations that it was intentionally keeping its currency, the yuan, undervalued compared to the US dollar. So why on earth would they do that? Well, a cheaper yuan makes Chinese products less expensive for anyone buying them with dollars. It's yet another powerful tool to give your exports a price advantage. So people, an ecosystem, and policy. That's kind of the three-legged stool that let China's manufacturing just explode. But that brings us to the really big forward-looking question. How stable is that stool today? What does the future actually hold for that Made in China label? I mean, you hear it all the time, right? People talk about rising wages in China or about other countries in Southeast Asia offering even cheaper labor. So is the reign of the world's factory actually coming to an end? Is a big shift about to happen? Well, hold on. Before we declare the end of an era, we have to remember the core strengths that got us here. That labor pool is still absolutely massive and competitive. The business ecosystem is so deeply woven into the fabric of the country and incredibly efficient. You just can't build that somewhere else overnight. And the government's focus on manufacturing is still a major driving force. And this right here, this is the key. The whole thing you need to remember. It's not just the cheap labor, it's not just the ecosystem, and it's not just the policies. It's the powerful synergy of all three of those things working together. That combination is the real secret sauce, and it's what makes China's manufacturing engine so incredibly hard to compete with. But look, history tells us one thing for sure: no economic dominance lasts forever. As China's own economy grows up and its costs continue to rise, it leaves us with a really fascinating question to think about. Who's out there that has the right mix of people, ecosystem, and policy to build the next world's factory? Thanks for watching.